Hey folks, so I just wanted to give a quick update to kind of cap off my previous video, Pragmatic Approach to Hypermobility and Dysautonomia, and also give sort of an update of what strategies I'm employing, what's kind of dropped by the wayside. And it's the beginning of 2021 now, so I'd sort of wanted to cap off the previous year. And I'm not really focused on making YouTube videos. I might occasionally update the documents I put together. There are some videos that I might do, but it's not a big priority for me. So I just kind of wanted to put something up to sort of cap off my previous videos. And one source of confusion, or the questions that I get, tend to be either what did you do for like a specific symptom or something, and then also confusion about like a timeline of like what I did, you know, a year ago or 2 years ago and what I do now and that sort of thing. So I put together this chart. It's got like my exercise progression, how I went from doing mostly physical therapy to more, you know, strength, hypertrophy. I made a video about program design, so you can check that out if you're interested in that topic. With the peptides, there was a year where I did BPC 157 and growth hormone secretagogues like 2 or 3 times a day. And then I also did thymosin beta 4 and GHK copper in there, maybe a few others. But then after that year, I started tapering down. I'd take occasional breaks. And lately, I really only do like light or occasional cycles of peptides. And part of that is that they're expensive. You know, if I had unlimited funds, I might be using them more. I'm fairly satisfied that most of them are pretty safe, but I don't necessarily want to be doing something that I don't need to. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do moving forward, but that's where I'm at currently. And then the dysautonomia, you know, in the beginning, I was like getting lightheaded and I was kind of collapsing. I only had a couple instances of true syncope. Mostly I would like feel like I was going to black out. I would start to fade to black. You know, my GI system was going haywire, temperature regulation all over the place. And I did meet the POTS criteria, but then right around when I started the peptides, actually, my dysautonomia started to improve pretty significantly, where I wouldn't have so much the lightheadedness. The thing that lingered was the GI issues. So when I made the last video, I mentioned laying down after meals. There was actually kind of a delay with the last video where I recorded it. I kind of knew what I wanted to say, but it just sort of sat around. I recorded it a few times and I wasn't happy with it. And then I finally posted it, but basically I posted that like a year ago, but it was like 6 months old at that point, basically. Anyways, the last year, my dysautonomia symptoms have been largely resolved. You know, I'll get a little bit lightheaded if I hold my breath and like pick up dog poop and then stand up, but I feel like that's just normal people stuff. So yeah, largely resolved, which is great. And people do ask me, they're like, what did you do for dysautonomia? And the truth is, I don't know. You know, I think in the last video, I really credited BPC 157, but the truth is I threw a lot of stuff at the wall. You know, training, improved nutrition, improved sleep, reduced stress, peptides. And I don't know what deserves the credit. And I mean, for me, I realize why other people want to know, but for me, it doesn't matter. If I was in this situation again, I'd just throw the same stuff at it again. So yeah, I can't really specifically credit any one particular thing, but you know, the BPC 157, the thymosin beta 4, improved sleep, I think those were contributing factors. I also quit using cannabis this past year, and that interacts with the autonomic nervous system, and it seemed to correlate with kind of improving the last of the dysautonomia symptoms. But again, you know, I don't know what to credit, and I know cannabis is helpful for a lot of people, but it does interact with the autonomic nervous system, and I think for me, dropping it was helpful. On the topic of sleep, you can see how it improved over the years. I did have my growth hormone tested. It was a non-stimulating growth hormone test, so they just take your blood and then check how much growth hormone is in it. And that's not a terribly accurate test. because it comes in pulses. But it did come back at pretty much 0, and combined with my sleep, I was satisfied that my endogenous growth hormone release was abysmal and was probably contributing to my problems. Which is part of why the growth hormone secretagogues were so appealing. But also, things like sleep are a really big factor in growth hormone production. And more recently, I had another test, the same type under similar conditions, and it came back good, like right in the range that I would hope for. So it seems like maybe the growth hormone secretagogues kickstarted things, maybe it was mostly the sleep, I don't know. But it seems like my growth hormone release is kind of back on track. And then pain, I went from severe pain, I was wearing a neck brace for a while there, everything hurt, yada, yada, yada. And now I'd say I have no significant chronic pain. My neck will still bug me, especially if I sit or slouch for a long time. And the other thing is that my lack of pain is also sort of contingent on my lifestyle. So if I went back to labor intensive jobs or banging myself up with hobbies, then I'd probably have issues again. And I'd say that I went from being pretty vulnerable to injury, where I would just hurt myself doing dumb stuff. Like I tweaked my knee pretty bad getting ketchup out of the refrigerator one time. And now I'd say I'm resistant to injury. Like I can run and jump, I can lift heavy things, I can twist and change directions quickly. So it's great. When I'm not taking the peptides, I lose some of my improved healing. But my baseline healing is much better too. And there was a few tidbits from the last video that I kind of wanted to clarify or update. I mentioned that peptides, or maybe BBC 157, was very vulnerable to mechanical UV or heat damage. And that's not really true. If you read the introductory sort of resources or just comments on Reddit, people will say peptides are really vulnerable, but the little bit of data that I've seen on various peptides, and they do vary between peptides, but for the most part, they're a lot more durable than we give them credit for. It's not something you want to be shaking or leaving in a hot car once it reconstitutes, but it's not like you're going to ruin it by squirting the water in too fast. I think I called what I used TB500, but it'd be more accurate to say I used thymosin beta 4, which is the full amino acid sequence, whereas TB500, although most of the TB500 sold is actually thymosin beta 4, technically TB500 should be taken to refer to a fragment of TB4. I made a Reddit post about it if you're interested in. I just wanted to say I use TB4, but potato for the most part. I might occasionally do a wall plank. I don't really do breath training anymore. Maybe I will once in a while, but I made it to 5 minutes and 15 seconds on a single breath, which I was pretty proud of. And at that point, I was kind of I don't think my lung capacity and CO2 tolerance are a factor in any lingering dysautonomia symptoms. So I sort of set that aside. It just doesn't seem like an avenue I need to keep pursuing, at least not substantially. I mentioned protein, and my numbers were maybe a little high, 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of body weight. Really 0.7 to 1 gram is maybe a more realistic range for getting pretty confident that you're really getting pretty much all the benefit you could. The thing is, if you have low protein and you increase your protein, you see substantial benefits for muscle protein synthesis, probably the other attributes of protein, tissue repair, and it does a lot of good stuff. But anyways, as your protein intake increases, your muscle protein synthesis goes up, and then there's an inflection point. And after that, getting more protein does maybe increase muscle protein synthesis a little bit, but not substantially like it did at the beginning. So the question is, where is that inflection point, and where do you want to be in relation to it? But 0.7 grams per pound of body weight is plenty of protein. Anyways, I mentioned HMB as a supplement, and I still take HMB, mostly because it seemed to help with muscle soreness in the beginning, and I bought 5 kilograms of it, which turns out that's like 3 years worth. So I've still got some. It's not like something that I have like a huge amount of confidence in though. So I feel like I mention it more than maybe I should proportionally to my confidence in it. Anyways, one supplement I've actually been throwing in more is glycine. Glycine is a really simple amino acid. I think it's the most common amino acid in collagen. And it's there's a cool study that suggested it might be the limiting factor in collagen synthesis. So if you bump up your glycine intake, you might bump up your collagen synthesis as well. And more collagen synthesis doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be incorporated into functional tissues or like improve the integrity of your connective tissue or anything like that. But I think it's worthwhile, and it's pretty cheap in bulk. And there have been studies suggesting it helps with sleep, and it's got a sweet flavor, so I put it in my evening tea. And yeah, so, you know, besides good like general protein intake with a good balanced amino acid profile, I think pretty much anyone with connective tissue problems should consider getting plenty of glycine. And then I mentioned meal timing, like time between meals. That's really not a big deal. I mean, it's much more important that you get a good total amount of protein each day than quibble about the particular meals. So that's sort of a more nuanced detail thing that probably wasn't even worth mentioning in the first place. I don't lay down after meals. That was one thing I mentioned quite a bit in the last video. And that's just not necessary for me anymore. Sometimes I'll chew gum after meals. And chewing seems to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and aid in digestion. So one weird trick you could try. I do still use the blue blocking glasses. Sleep is still a big priority for me. It comes a little easier now, so I don't have to block out, I think I mentioned like sort of like a 12-hour window with like an hour of pre-sleep routine and then 11 hours of sleep. Now blocking out like 10 hours for sleep is plenty. And then I do still have like an hour pre-sleep routine. I'm not as like religious about it or intense about it, just because I don't have to be. But sleep's still a big priority. And unfortunately, I still have to work at it. Like I kind of was hoping that it would just sort of click, and then I would like get sleepy at appropriate times and I'd be compelled to go to bed. But it's still something where it's sort of a, you know, an intellectual decision thing. It's not like I'm drawn to go to bed. I could still stay up way too late if I allowed myself to. I do take GABA sometimes before bed. There was a cool study where they gave people 3 grams of GABA and it increased growth hormone secretion substantially. The thing is, 3 grams is a monster dose of GABA, like tingling hands, consult your doctor, like seriously consult your doctor, sort of dose of GABA. So that's not something I want to be taking every night, but I do find that like 750 milligrams to 1 gram maybe helps with sleep a little bit. But fortunately, I found that I don't really need any of these supplements. Like glycine also helps with sleep. I take it before bed, but I sleep okay without them. I also take melatonin. I'll do a combination of slow release and quick release. And that's pretty much all I've got. So I don't know what else to add. I hope this has kind of clarified that other video. I'm sorry there aren't more puppies in this one. Maybe I'll get some B-roll footage of puppies and put it in at the end. But that's where I'm at. And if you want to read some of my thoughts or ideas on these topics and others, I've got documents. I'll probably just link a Reddit post with links to all of them. And that's where I'll probably put more effort, although those aren't a big focus for me right now either. I've gotten to the point where like there's plenty of topics I could learn more about, you know, collagen synthesis and hormones and like the genetics of connective tissue disorders and stuff like that. But the likelihood of finding something substantially impactful and applicable at this point is kind of diminishing. And so I'm just focused on other stuff, and I'm not spending so much time, you know, studying up on whatever growth hormone and collagen synthesis and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, that's where I'm at. Happy 2021, and I wish you all the best.